All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Unfortunately, like I mentioned before, my co-presenter, Dr. Carmen Medina, had an urgent family matter to attend to, so she could not be here today. But you have me. All right, so I'll start with a brief introduction of myself. I'm Dr. Rosylin. I'm assistant professor at Tennessee State University. I serve in the teaching and learning department in the Department of Education. My background consists of ELL learners and curriculum and instruction and teacher leadership. I also train teachers and future principals for going into the public school system in the United States. Dr. Carmen Medina is a principal at a government-funded language school in Antequera, Malaga, Spain. She also has a PhD in linguistics, and she was a very important contributor to the development of the combined framework of dual language and framework of 90-10 and 50-50 model. And here is Dr. Carmen Medina. I will provide her contact information along with my own at the end of the presentation. To begin, let's focus on why dual language. A simple answer is there is no longer a monolingual society. Society consists of multilingual languages, cultures, making us a global society. With the workforce becoming more international, more and more individuals are working abroad, making it necessary for us to kind of become more than monolingual, but maybe trilingual and multilingual. So to focus on what are the latest trends and practices in the field of dual language, I can give you a perspective from the point of view from the United States. And this will definitely vary from the United States and other parts of the world. In the United States, dual language programs are on a rise. This is due to having students become more globally aware and prepared for careers that do not necessarily exist yet, and also allowing students the opportunity to see the world through language development. Pre-COVID, dual language programs are very much on the rise, and now post-COVID, it has started to rise again in the United States. Some public schools, because we have large ELL English language learners populations across the United States, we tend to have more students speaking multi languages, and we have developed in our public school system dual language programs to assist with that. Dual language and bilingual education. Dual language programs are generally associated with the target language of mastery using either the 50-50 model or the 90-10. There has been some confusion between bilingual and dual lingual education. Lots of times people tend to use those terms interchangeably, whereas bilingual programs of education may consist of a target language being taught as a subject or in isolation. Academic language is not generally taught in the target language of mastery, or the target language is used to assist non-native speakers such as English language learners. So in the sense of using bilingual education programs, there is no KELP per se in the target language. The KELP will not happen as far in a bilingual program. Teachers may speak the language of the majority of the students, and they assist in teaching using both languages, English and the target language. However, in dual language programs, the goal is to have KELP, cognitive academic language proficiency in both languages, the native language and the dual language and the target language. So the dual language program usually has two models. The first model I'm going to talk about is the 90-10 model and what makes this model effective. The dual language program of 90-10 is instructed in 90% of the day in the target language, and the instruction is given in academic language of that 90% of the time, while the native language is used for instruction 10% of the time. The 90-10 model is most effective if used during grades K through 2, so kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. As students still have a strong LAD, language acquisition device, as we know, derived from Stevens Krushen and Noam Chomsky, otherwise known sometimes as universal grammar. Their affective filter is highly in motion between that time, so then they can acquire the language as much faster than maybe their older counterparts. Now, with that being said, there are some limitations to using the 90-10 model. Even though it is effective, there are some limitations. The 90-10 model is generally used in a K through 5 grade level, and grades K through 12 grades, the target language is taught in isolation. With this in mind, there would be limitations to the mastery of the target language. So what happens is between grades K through 5, they may start developing strong CALP, but then it falls off from grade 6, 7, 8, and up to 12th grade, because then the language is no longer taught in holistic manner, it's taught in isolation. So then they lose that CALP, and they may just develop the speaking and listening part of the language, maybe some of the writing, but not to the point where they could study in academic settings. The next model is the 50-50 model, which can also be used, which is used in the dual language. Students learn with native speakers of the target language. So 50% of the students in the class would be a native speaker of the target language, and the other 50% of the students will not be. The collaborative learning with native speakers of the target language is proven effective, and students learn faster from their peers. So this is what makes this model effective. Again, there are limitations to this model also, again, and with that being said, the limitations, in fact, again, is the fact that it's only used from grades K through 5. And then the target language is taught in isolation without the connection of general academic content. So again, you're losing that mastery of the language from the CALP perspective. Hence, the combination, the dual language combination framework of 90-10. And this model varies at times through the grade levels. So here in the chart, I'll kind of go through the chart and explain first, and then I will talk about some of the limitations to this model. So the theory behind this model and rationale is this, that you would use the 90-10 model in grades K through 2. Because the language acquisition device, as we know, is more active, otherwise known as universal grammar, and we would phase in one grade level at a time. So meaning that you will start with the kindergarten and you then will phase in the next previous grades using that 90-10 model. Next would be the 3rd through 5th grade. You would then use a 50-50 between that time period. And at this time, the rationale behind that is because code switching has begun. And here in the United States, these are considered testing grades. These are the grades where we tend to take state and national testing. So that will require the students to test in both languages to show cognitive progress and growth. Then you know that the model is being effective that way. And then grades 6 through 8, you would then use the 50-50 model once again, because at this time we have Erickson's theory of stages of development. Here, students tend to identify in those grades who they really want to be. And they tend to attach themselves to what language they would like to associate themselves with if they're bilingual or trilingual. So then using the 50-50 model makes sense at that time. And again, these are considered testing grades, and then we're trying to grow their cognitive progress and growth. Grade 9, they would then continue with the 50-50 model, as this is also a transitional year. Code switching is still happening, and then transitioning into the high school setting, you would still use that 50-50 model. Now, here's where the intricate change happens. In grades 10th and 11th, in 10th grade, you use the 90-10 model, and then you would then switch to using the 100% immersion in those 2 grades. Full language immersion, which leads to full cognitive academic language proficiency. So the beginning of the semester, first half of the year, they would start off with the 90-10, and then the second half of the year, it's 100% immersion in the language. So then they are building their full CALP proficiency here. And then in grades, in 12th grade, you will start the beginning of the year in the 100% and then switch down to the 50%, 50-50 model, because code switching again needs to be reactivated here. And second semester, you have the cognitive academic help happening here as well when you're using that 50-50 model. And also at this time in 12th grade, students are getting ready to graduate. They determine whether or not they want to go to university. Here, they would have full academic, cognitive language proficiency in both target language native and the target language. They can choose. For example, if the target language was Spanish, one of the students who are graduating doesn't necessarily have to go to an English-speaking university. They can end up going to a Spanish-speaking university. So that opens up their global awareness to allow them to travel even more places. Now, there are some limitations to this model. One being that the primary limitation with the model would be the commitment to implementation. That would be one of the primary reasons this model may not be as effective, because it will really desire some commitment to allowing it to be implemented. Having IB, this is one of the other things. This model really would be effective in an IB school setting, an international baccalaureate system, because they already have that language piece already in it. So it's a matter of implementing the structure and having it. Also, staffing as could be considered a limitation, because as of right now in the United States, we have a national teacher shortage. So staffing would be a problem, to a limitation to this model. But otherwise than that, like I said, the dedication, if it is actually implemented and implemented correctly, you will have full academic, cognitive, academic language proficiency in the target language of choice, as well as their native language. At this time, I still have time for questions, so I can open up the floor for questions for this model at this time. You can also put questions into the chat. Okay. All right. There's a question.
You take the questions. It's all right. Go on.